Okay, so this next worksheet is going to go over basically the odds and ends. So this is the things that don't really have to do with the cells. This is more of like the vocabulary, how the immunity kind of works. So this first portion is, so we talked about innate immunity and specific immunity. This doesn't, the primary, secondary immunity are different ways of how it works. So your primary immune response is just say I get the flu for the first time or I get chicken pox for the first time. My immune system reacts, threat is destroyed, and I'm happy. Secondary immune response is the second time I get sick. So that's a brief rundown. So at what stage of the immune response are B cells produced? In the primary stage. So the first time you get sick, your B cells will be produced. And then they'll proliferate, and then they'll secrete all sorts of things. But when they're really produced, the first time is the primary, right? First primary. The second time you get sick, the secondary, this will have higher concentrations of antibodies produced due to existing B cells. So in the primary stage, your B cells don't exist, and then they do. In the second stage, your primary B cells will kind of be there already. You get sick a second time, and your B cells will be like, okay, we're ready to produce things. So you'll have a much higher concentration of antibodies in the beginning. So if you look at this graph, these two graphs, you'll see this in your book. You can see this line, these red and green lines represent, they represent the amount of antibodies there are. So on this bottom part, where did I put it? This is like day 1, day 2, day 10, day 20. Same thing with down here, except for this is like the amount of antibodies you have. So in the primary one, you see how it it takes longer to activate. The peak of it is like day 15. Do you see that? So it takes forever to activate, and then it kind of levels off. The second time you're exposed, your antibodies, the amount of them is going to skyrocket, and it's going to remain very high concentration. So that's what your line. And see, your reaction with the second time you're infected happens like day 5 versus day 15. So it happens a lot faster, it happens a lot stronger, more bang for your buck kind of thing the second time. So with that in mind, when antibodies peak between 2 to 3 weeks, that's your primary response, right? Because you don't really have a response because you don't have those B cells at first. So you're kind of waiting. Antibodies spikes in 1 to 2 days, that's your secondary response, more, because you already have those B cells, were already created. Second time you get sick, you're like, I'm ready for you. Yeah, your memory cells are trained, ready for action. Well, at the beginning, you're like, ooh, we really need to start getting some of those memory cells. Second time, you're like, I got them. So that's that. That is a rundown of primary and secondary immune response. Any questions on that? Okay, so this is like an odds and end worksheet because, I don't know, I put them on the same one because I couldn't find something else. This has to do with acquired and artificial and naturally getting immunity. So this has to do with your immune response. So if you look at this, you can fill it in. Whenever you have a natural immune thing, it's very natural, okay? We were talking about the babies earlier. The IgG passing through the placenta from the mother to the baby, that's passive immunity. And you can see it's naturally acquired. You get that naturally. Active immunity is when the infection is infection. This is when you come in contact with the pathogen. So active immunity, active natural immunity is when you naturally get sick. Passive natural immunity is when you get those antibodies and you have that immunity passively from your mother. You just kind of get them, and then over time they kind of like go away. But that is natural. You either get sick or your mom gets pregnant and you get that stuff.
Like the only scenario is passive is at birth.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, another thing too with the passive is you do get it from the mom, but some people can also get, who don't have immune systems, they can also get injections of antibodies.
But that's artificial.
Yeah, that's artificial. Yeah, so these are two passive. Right. There's an artificial way of getting the immunity, and then there's an active way. So over here, we're going to look at artificially acquired. And this is, did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yes.
It did? Okay. Yes. Before I start going another tangent. So you're artificially acquired. Artificially, this happens not naturally. This happens, at a hospital. Active, so this says vaccine, dead or attenuated pathogens. Attenuated means like weakened pathogens. This is like when you get a vaccine. You go to a hospital, they inject you with a little bit of that weakened virus, and you have an immune response. That immune response means that you're active. You have active immunity. Some people cannot tolerate the vaccine. Their immune system is so weak that it's just better just to give them just some antibodies. You give it to them, but they don't actually produce anything. That's passive. You get an injection of immune serum, gamma globulin. So with active, both of these make you sick. You get that immune response, or you get that vaccine, and your immunity, your immune system reacts. In passive immunity, you have the antibodies, but you don't have those memory B cells. You don't have those memory T cells. It happens very passively. You have that protection, but you don't have the reaction. Does that make sense? And then you have to go back and get them again. So looking at these pictures, naturally acquired active immunity, you acquire this type of immunity naturally. You get sick, you get a fever, it's active. Or naturally acquired. This is, typically, getting sick. Naturally acquired passive immunity, you naturally get this immunity from your mother. It is passive because you get her antibodies, but the baby's immune response, it doesn't happen. You don't have that immune reaction. So it's passive. It happens very passively, natural from the mom. Your artificially, though, these happens like in the hospital. Artificially acquired active immunity, this is when you get a vaccine. The vaccine then evokes an immune response. It causes your immune response to kind of flare up. And, your immune reaction activates. It's artificially acquired. Artificially acquired passive immunity happens when you just get the injection with antibodies. You don't get the virus, you don't get anything, you just get the immune antibodies, and that just gives you protection. Does that make sense? And if you can see, scroll up. Up. Yeah, and as you can see, I did have these flipped around, but this active one, these correlate with the pictures that are right under them. So, the infection is here. These are just the pictures. Because visuals are nice. Yeah. Any questions on artificial or active or naturally acquired immunity? It's pretty straight.
Probably not going to get too many questions on that. It just seems too straightforward for exams.
But sometimes when you see it, you're like, whoa, because there's like 4 words. But honestly, if you break it down, it's like, okay. So hopefully she does have a lot on this, right? That'd be nice. So, well, that concludes the 5th, 6th worksheet? 6th? Okay, and then we're moving on to 7.